Hi. Okay. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Um, Testing this out. So, my name is Robert Shields. This program is going to be called Alaska Leaping Forward. The purpose of this program is to convey and engage in ongoing discussion in something that is very important to me and I think to a lot of people, and that is the transition that we're going to make over the next 10 years. Um, Things can change a lot in the next 10 years. We all know that. The best way to predict the future is to be part of it. I've always been trying to do that, and I want to continue to do that, and this is part of that. So, this is a 30-minute show. I'm going to try to set it up as a weekly show. Part of this is to rate the quality of the audio and the video equipment. I've invested in a Galaxy 7, or excuse me, a Galaxy 9, and part of that is to be able to have these conveyances. I recently ran for mayor in the Fairbanks North Star Borough, and part of that was because I want to be of service to the community. I feel that we all have that calling, and I think that in embracing that calling, we actually find a true sense of joy that no Ferrari or no amount of sex or any kind of drugs can ever provide. So anyway, what I'm going to try to cover here, and I'm trying to put together a script, so I apologize for the roughness of this first video and the fact that it's occurring in my studio, which honestly is inside of a closet. Considering that the American Revolution started inside of a bar, I'm not going to worry about it. It's important, and I want to bring it up, because a lot of people have a lot of good things that they can contribute to moving our entire society forward. But they don't make those contributions because they're afraid that they're not good enough, that they don't have the right tools, that for whatever reason they are incapable of doing something positive and beautiful, just as they are. And I disagree with that. I always think that I've always thought that the most precious resource that we have on this planet is each other. And I think that the best way we can move us forward is to love each other, understand each other, and work together. And it's funny because we live in this huge duality where talk is cheap, but our democracy requires that we communicate and try to be inclusive with everybody, build consensus. This is a difficult thing. It slows things down, but it also makes sure that we aren't reckless and impetuous, which youth can sometimes be. And in hidden civilizations, we are still fairly young. So, the three things that I want to cover in this particular show is why the show, why me, and what people can expect next. Because one of the fundamental goals I want to achieve with this is to build an audience, to get people talking, thinking about these ideas as far as how we as a state can move forward, and how Alaska can be an example to the rest of the United States on how we can be the leaders of a climate, how we can be the leaders of preparing the next generation to to exist and thrive in a rapidly changing climate. I'm trying to get a lot out here and figure out exactly what I want to include so that it's entertaining and engaging. So the other thing I guess to mention here is that this isn't going to be something that's just me doing a weekly monologue. I don't think that's very engaging. I'm doing this live event partially so that people can, once they know what's happening, if they feel like the value to them, start making contributions, and this is going to shape how the show goes forward. I'm also going to probably be doing from other places, considering I have the mobility of my phone, and obviously I'm going to be calling in guests. I'll be able to do live guests, and I'll also be able to do interviews with folks around town. So, if you have any positive, constructive feedback, please, that's what it's for. So why the show? So a show is basically a focused conversation, a platform for discussion, the beginning points of revolution. Revolution being a term describing rapid evolution, which is conscious evolution, because we make a choice to change. Rapid evolution can sometimes be referred to as revolution and violent and stuff, but that's also, again, a choice that we make. It's not a choice that I'm making, and it's not a choice that I want this show to represent. I've invited groups or people from groups that are political, non-political, religious, non-religious, trying to get as wide of perspective from the community as possible, because we in the Fairbanks North Star Borough are an island geographically. Well, surrounded by mountains. We're cut off from the rest of the United States and isolated to air travel, train, and road. Now, this presents us with some challenges, and it also presents us with some great opportunities. So those opportunities are what I'm here to explore, why I feel that Alaska in particular, largely because of our small population, has the ability to demonstrate to the world some things that more progressive communities like Portland, Seattle, Boulder couldn't. There is one community in the continental United States which has shown some great progress and an example of how we can all thrive on and living with a planet. And that's Greenberg. Now, the challenge with Greenberg, Kansas, which I kind of want to avoid with other communities, and in proposing comprehensive, sustainable permaculture land use planning, which is the fact that the reason Greenboro, Kansas started down the road towards permaculture and sustainability was the community was wiped out by an F5 tornado. And that's not exactly the starting point that we want to go with. But it does demonstrate why Alaska has an opportunity where many places that are more progressive in regards to sustainable planning, because we don't have that infrastructure. And the infrastructure we do have is at a point where we're looking at replacing it. And so this is an opportunity, I believe, for us to do it right. I also am going to try to do my best to focus this conversation and the information that I portray from an economic standpoint. And what I mean by that is that my background is in resource management. Studying university, I studied economics at the university. I continue to study economics on my own, and I'm going to be looking at going back as part of my own personal plan to finish my economics degree at the University of Alaska Fairbanks here pretty soon. But the idea of promoting it as economics is that it's clear to me that the allocation of resources is what really drives a lot of the decisions. And we have a physical basis on which we can make decisions. And so that is going to be where I think that we have the most impact, including influencing policy and in understanding people's motivations in our current economic system. And there's a lot of things to discuss, so I don't think that we're going to have any problem with picking content or anything else like that. I think one of the biggest challenges is probably going to be having a good format for people that can flow. One of the reasons I'm starting this today is because some of the information that I've come across recently in my own personal journey is that one of the most fundamentally important ways to ground information and learning for yourself is to absorb it like you're teaching it to others. And on my own personal journey, I feel like I've kind of reached a plateau of my spiritual growth, and I've been asking the universe how I can attract to myself more opportunities to grow, and more mentors and stuff and teachers, so that I can grow. And I was reminded that sometimes the best teachers, or the best way to find out what you know and learn more, is to try to teach it to other people. So that's that's part of the reason for the show and why we're starting it today. The other reason for the show is that there's a lot of things going on in the world, and there's a lot of things going on here locally. Air quality, recycling, budgets. And right now, by our current administration, they're being handled in They're doing the best they can, but they're handling them. They're handling them reactively, and they're handling the separate issues in compartmentalized fashion, like the entire discussion of IGU and energy isn't something that the Sustainability Commission is discussing. The Sustainability Commission is really discussing a very rudimentary policy plan, which basically focuses on food, energy, and waste, which are good starts. But from the documents I've seen, there's a lack of understanding of exactly how those things play together and the economic opportunities they present and what kind of policies are going to be able to come out from such a plan. Now I understand that they've held a lot of meetings and tried to get public input and stuff, but something else I've recently learned, which is one of the reasons for this particular show, is that sometimes change is basically marketing, and people really don't know what they want until you show it to them. Part of it is because they can tell you what they don't like about it. And so I do give kudos to the commission for trying to accomplish this, but I have been studying sustainability, sustainable community development has been a core part of my background and my experience and my focus both professionally and personally for the last 20 years. And it's something that I feel like I can make a huge contribution to. However, over the last 8 years, I've attempted to bring in vendors, bring in people who are interested in developing these kind of solutions for recycling and sustainability, economic development for the community. And every time in my whole 3 minutes of opportunity I get to speak, I'm just told it's too expensive or we need more research, any reason not to move forward. And I will say that in the last 8 years, I've only received maybe 1 or 2 emails from anyone in any position of authority interested in actually learning more. Most of the responses I get are, well, appreciate it, but we got it in hand. And I think that one of the things this last election has shown and the current political, environmental, and social environment shows is they don't. And so the biggest reason for the show is that I want to tell everybody out there who's listening and everybody else who's watching that you can do something yourself. And if you're tired of things and you don't see anybody if you don't see anybody demonstrating the kind of leadership that you want, take it, do it, own it. I also learned this morning that we all know the idea of with great power comes great responsibility. I learned this morning that with great responsibility comes great power. And this reflects on a saying that I've kind of been fond of, in that he who blazes the trail determines the path. You know, Buzz Aldrin got to choose the words that he spoke when he stepped on the moon, or in the studio where the moon landing was faked, however you want to see it. But the idea is that you shouldn't be afraid of speaking your voice. And I know that we're growing more courageous about speaking our voice when we've been harmed and expressing our fears and our frustrations. And it's important to let those out. But I think it's equally important that we have a forum to explore our hopes and our dreams. Thanks to Mark Zuckerberg for giving me this opportunity to explore this and to share my perspective and the world that I'm creating for myself and my friends here in Fairbanks with the world. And I invite you all to become part of this conversation and to come visit. We're going to be doing some amazing things up here, and I'd like you to come see them. So the reason that I'm doing the show, again, I'm trying to really focus on this. This is my first show. I've been a little apprehensive about doing it and kind of put it off, and and I just took the leap today. So thank you for sticking with me and for your patience as if it meanders a little bit. I'll try to doing my best to stay on point here. But why me? So why me goes to both my background, which I've kind of already gone into, but it also goes to the fact that I don't like bullies. I feel that we have become bullied by our utility, by our government, by our corporations who are pulling the strings behind both of them. And I think that if they were if they were truly in support of a free market, that they would end the subsidies and the government handouts that they take, and then turn around and complain that others have to take to try to keep up with them. I respect a large perspective, a diverse perspective. I have nurtured, or done my best to nurture. Sorry, I haven't get to everybody. I try to make sure to do the birthday notifications on everybody, but I try to nurture a broad perspective of friends on Facebook, especially the people who don't agree with me or who have different perspectives on things, sometimes radically different. I can't say that I always agree with them, and I don't want to. Because the reason that they're there, and the reason that I hope that I can be a positive influence in their life, is that in simply seeing another perspective, you have another choice to make. You have more information on which to make an informed choice. So, I'm also a community leader, and that doesn't mean that I organize a large group of people. That means I have taken it upon myself to invest the time and resources to contribute what I can to make positive changes in the community, and to share information which I think is helpful, to organize folks when and where I can, and to provide opportunities. So this is what actually created the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge, which is a 501c3 that I started here in Fairbanks in 2000, for the purpose of providing educational opportunities that empower individuals and enrich the communities for which they live. Essentially helping people be the change they want to be and see the world. In college, I gained a reputation for helping people as a way to deal with stress relief, and as a way to contribute and pay back the kindness that was shown to me growing up, and in the difficult transition I had my first couple of weeks in college, being 3,000 miles away from everything I'd ever known and everybody I'd known. So anyway, so part of that was making this commitment to paying back that kindness, and to making a contribution. And in the years, I've really found a lot of joy and happiness in being of service, and helping move things forward, and knowing that in some ways that I've made people's lives better. So I've created the funnels, the paradigms, the foundations on which to have some of these discussions. The show is not just a discussion show. This is going to be a weekly update on things that I'm doing and how we're making progress. I've made some difficult choices. I've made mistakes. I've learned along the way, which is the important part. But I believe that there is an opportunity for us to move forward. I believe now is that opportunity, and I think the crisis that we face is the greatest opportunity. So, I guess if we're looking for someone to host a show like this that discusses how in the next 10 years the state can be an example to the rest of the world in making a transition. That transition, which we have promoted through ARC as well as through the Green Party of Alaska, is a 10-year transition plan to move the state beyond fossil fuels in regards to our heating, energy, and transportation needs. Now, I know people think that this is a challenge. It is. But in a state that built in 3 years, 20 years ago, a massive pipeline to run across the entire state, I have confidence that should we commit ourselves to this task as a state, we will accomplish it. I'm committed. Trying to do something so ostentatious, but I remember a quote that if a man's dreams doesn't exceed his grasp, what's heaven for? So I think we've covered kind of why me. So what's next? So I kind of touched on this before in that I'm going to be doing a 30-minute weekly broadcast. Sunday afternoons at 4 p.m. Yeah, let's 4:30. It's 4:30 now. We'll stick with it. We've created a tradition. So Sunday afternoons, 4:30. I'll sit here or I'll be wherever, and I'll record for half an hour. Please join in with questions. Provide feedback. I'm going to set up a channel. You'll ask. I think it's not sure if we're going to under the Alliance for Reason and Knowledge video page. I'm still kind of working on figuring out exactly how to focus YouTube, but it will be posted. Now with my fancy dancy phone, I'll probably add a few graphics and try to make the show a little more snazzy so that we can share it and attract more people across multimedia platforms. With a half-hour show, I'm hoping to be able to get into something with maybe even Fairbanks Open Radio or a national broadcast so that we can let people know what's going on, because mainly people need something to believe in. And I hope that this Alaska Leaping Forward concept and program can be it. Not me. I'm a fallible human. But ideas are something people should be able to get around. And if we're going to make this transition, everybody's going to be able to get around it. So I feel like I'm doing what I can to be inclusive and to give everybody the opportunity within the framework of what they already have going on in their lives to make contributions and to, in a fashion, kind of direct where things go. So I thank you for taking the time to watch this. I've got a clock on the wall. I'm trying to keep it real close to half an hour. But essentially, so we'll be doing some clips. Doing some interviews. With Facebook Live, I have the opportunity to be able to bring in people from all over the world. So we'll try to play with a little bit of that as we go through the 5 steps of the transition plan, which will probably be what we discuss next week. So that's going to be the LEAP Manifesto, the Eco Districts Protocol, the PESMA? Is it PESMA? I'm trying to recall from memory the 5 stages without going and grabbing the brochure here. So I know the first step is the LEAP Manifesto and taking the leap. The second step is the Ecodistrics Protocol. Oh, the third is the Transition Network, sharing our stories with the world. The fourth is going to be, what was it? Oh, PESMA, the Pacific Environmental Management for Southeast Asia. They came up with a beautiful model they wrote a book on called The Blue Economy. I encourage anyone who's really interested in transitioning to a clean energy economy to understand economies based on physics in the natural world. The Scandinavians, they've done a lot of great things that are based on those same kind of complex systems. However, I think the work that PESMA has done is the most comprehensive and the most useful in creating from the ground up an economic system. And Alaska has, again, the opportunity to do that because we actually can create a mirror system. Anyway, so the last step is something that honestly our kids are going to have to be dealing with, but we're trying to set the stage for that, and that's the pathways to a Star Trek economy, Star Trek future, and that is moving beyond money, politics, and war. A concept that has been embraced and promoted by an organization called the Venus Project, which has now been reorganized as a nonprofit focused on its goal of creating for the world a resource-based economy. A way for us all, I believe, to be able to use our technology, use our imagination, and use our compassion and our intellect to balance our needs for the current moment as well as the needs of future generations so we can all thrive together. I know we got fast where we are, but to go far, we're going to need to slow down, take a deep breath, and begin again. Every day when you wake up, you have the opportunity to take a breath and begin again. If you've made mistakes, learn from them. If you feel down, don't stay there. Get up. Go for a walk. If you can't find light in the world, Be that light for someone else. Even a small gesture can have profound influences on people. You see it all the time. So it's important that we don't forget to take those opportunities in our lives and the opportunities presented to us to show love and kindness for one another. That is the beginning of where we're going to have to start to rebuild trust with our government, which means rebuilding trust with each other as people, which means rebuilding trust with ourselves. That's also one of the reasons that I'm doing this. In a sense, this is kind of therapy for me, because it's stressful to live in a world where so many people are suffering and feel powerless to do anything about it. So I'm taking back that power and I'm doing something about it. I don't know how much of an impact it's going to be, but that's not my concern. My concern is that when this camera stops rolling, that I've done my best. That every night when I lay my head down, I've done my best. That to the degree that I can, I've made a difference in the world. I think we all can. And I know that for my part, if I am to fail, it will not be for a lack of trying. So I've got about 5 more minutes here as I develop this new habit of having a weekly podcast, television, radio show, whatever you want to call it, my video diary. It's hard to understand. It's hard to know what the right words are. And knowing that I'm recording this for all posterity and all time, I hate to have gaps. But at the same time, I want to make sure that the words that I convey have meaning, and that I'm not just rambling. Because we often in this world talk a lot and say very little. And we forget that words are power. And when we open our mouth, we have a responsibility. Basic responsibility to do no harm. Because we don't want anyone to do harm against us. We all know this rule. We just lose patience sometimes. But we do have to start having conversations. And we have to follow those conversations up with direct action, both in our own lives and in having the patience to collaborate on efforts with others. Because if we only do what we can do in our own lives, we're never going to create the momentum that's necessary to overcome the challenges that we face. We have some deferred maintenance issues as far as our collective consciousness of a society. In a computer program, it's constantly being updated. Our society should also be updated, but it has to be done carefully in order to avoid creating more suffering than we're trying to cause. We have all those tools to be able to do that. And again, I think Alaska has a lot to contribute to that. And it's because we don't have a lot of infrastructure. So that as we are planning for the next 140 years, roughly 7 generations, we will be able to do so with the proper perspective and frame of mind, in order to make sure that not only are we not doing harm in our actions to this generation, but that we are not doing harm to generations going forward, and that we recognize that we've made some mistakes, so we're going to have to correct them, and it's going to be difficult for a while, but we can do it. And just like going to the gym, the first day may be hard, but every day it'll keep getting easier. We'll keep growing, and we'll keep getting better. One last note is that my foundation for understanding of how to interact with the physical world is based in the science of permaculture. This is, to me, a modern scientific understanding of what is basically considered indigenous knowledge of our relationship with each other, and a natural world, which I believe is a living biological organism with which we exist in a symbiotic relationship. Our knowledge, wisdom, and skills give us the ability to change this world, and with this power, we have to accept responsibility for stewardship. You can find that mantra in everything from atheist to Christianity and Buddhism and everything in between. So, thank you all. I appreciate it. I hope to see you next week, and stay beautiful.